Do you want your business to grow faster? Are you open to new and out-of-the-box ways to drive revenues and increase value? How do you imagine the most successful entrepreneurs and business leaders double, triple, or expand their businesses tenfold or more? The answer is Deals. This is a weekly podcast featuring conversations with business owners, executives, and leaders as we reveal behind-the-scenes details that give you, our listeners, the confidence to pursue your own deal-driven growth. On the show, we discuss a huge variety of deals, everything from large, complex mergers and acquisitions to smaller deals that you can do even without significant capital. My name is Corey Kupfer, and I've been supporting deal-driven growth for businesses for 35 years as a successful entrepreneur, professional negotiator, and attorney. My goal is to help you strategize, plan for, find, and complete deals that will help your company grow faster. Welcome to the DealQuest Podcast. Let's get started. I am here with Ramon Ray, or should I say the Ramon Ray. I'm so excited, DealQuest listeners and watchers live and on video now. Listen, Ramon was on episode 3. Okay, I believe this is going to be episode 121.
Ooh, congratulations. Congratulations.
And, thank you, sir. And he's on episode 3. He was on when we were a baby podcast. You know, he was like 18 years old or something back then. And we were audio only. And now we are audio. We're on, we've started doing YouTube. And on some of our returning guests, we have started doing this through StreamYard on Facebook Live as well, which is where we are today. Nice. So for those of you, for like the 2 people out there who don't know who Ramon Ray is, I'm going to read his bio, and then, we'll talk a little bit about, sort of where we left off a couple of years ago and what's happened since for Ramon, and also just in the influencer and sponsorship space and the other kind of deals that he does. So Ramon is a leading expert on small business success. He inspires and educates thousands of business owners every year through his content, events, and media interviews. He is a 4-time entrepreneur who sold 2 companies. And by the way, back on episode 3, he talks about the lessons and, and the good and the ugly of those.
You got to go back and listen. You got to go, not yet, but when we're done, go back and listen.
Exactly. Right. Not yet. But he sold 2 companies. He's also the best-selling author, including Celebrity CEO, all about personal branding. Ramon was born in the Midwest and has moved to Brooklyn. And as a Brooklyn boy, I welcome him to my borough. New York, as he moved there as a young teen. So, he's almost a real Brooklynite. You can say Ramon's he's part well-mannered Midwesterner and part action-oriented New Yorker. I love that. I think it's so accurate. Ramon is the founder of SmartHustle.com, an entrepreneur in resident at Oracle NetSuite. And that's something I want to talk to him about because that's something that's happened since the last podcast. Mm-hmm. Ramon has shared the stage with many leading business thought leaders, including Seth Godin, Simon Sinek, and Gary Vaynerchuk. Ramon Ray, welcome back.
Hey, Corey. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. Good to hang with you, man. When I heard Corey said, Ramon, can you? It's just yes, figuring out what Corey would say. And always good being with you. And thank you for your vulnerability, Corey, and the variety of things that you do in life. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you, man. Listen, if I knew you were a yes to whatever I say, I might have made a different request.
That's how much I trust you.
All right. So folks, listen, like I said, Ramon on episode 3, after this is over, you want to go back because you're going to so enjoy this. You'll hear about some of his prior entrepreneurial ventures and partnerships and sale. And also we talked generally where I want to expand upon today about what Ramon does, which is he called himself a mini influencer, I believe back then. And Ramon's a very humble guy. So my guess is he probably still wouldn't call himself a major influencer, but I want to at least move you to medium influencer, Ramon. So we're going to talk about the influencer world and deals in that and how he gets major companies to sponsor a lot of things that he does. And I want to get some updates on what's happened, in the last couple of years. Obviously, a lot has happened because his episode was, we had some pre-pandemic time, we had some COVID time, and now we have the evolution out of COVID time. Right. So a lot, has happened in the world. So Ramon, just tell us about some of the things that, you've been up to. We mentioned that Oracle NetSuite, thing. I know you've had some great announcements lately. What's going on with you, man?
Yeah, no, I'm doing great, especially regarding the DealQuest audience, all things deal and more, right? So deals about family, mindset, energy, sometimes not feeling so great. Deals kind of encompass all that. But to give you a quick update, then you let me know where you want to take this, especially to help the audience as they're looking for different, strategies and ways. And even sometimes, Corey, it's just one tip, right? I like what Ramon said and Corey said. Let me steal in a good way. Let me steal that idea. Yes. Talking to a lawyer, saying the word steal. But anyways, a few things, Corey, I'll recap. I think one, definitely the deal with Oracle NetSuite is amazing. And I think to recap kind of what I do, many brands, this is not for everybody, but many brands are looking for the word they call influencers. And the reason I say many influencers, because there's those who maybe see on the proverbial Instagram, makeup and beauty. And those people often, to be anything, you got to have, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, as it were, followers to really make a dent. Whether money is there or not versus free products is one thing. But in the business world space, it gets a lot more narrow, right? There's only Mark Cuban and Damon John, Seth Godin, Susie Orman, whatever, the top 100, Brian Tracy. But then you have this nice little middle, which I'll put myself there to some degree. It's contextual, and right, thank you. It's contextual, but in small business. And so that's where I fit in. So Oracle, NetSuite, they're like, you know what? We're this big $1 billion company. They have money to spend. They do advertising and all this. But one thing they don't have, Corey, is kind of that, meaning they have their executive team, of course, but they don't have that public human element, that brand ambassador, someone kind of to wave the flag and be themselves. That's kind of, on the James Bond movies or whatever. They have the regular military guys, and they hire that weird guy outside the wire. He's with them, but he can do other things. So that's me. So that's one thing, and I can go into that more if you like. I'll just recap a bit here. But so that's Oracle NetSuite, a brand ambassador for them, a good deal to really represent them. And basically, we were doing a lot together, Corey. And I'm like, you know what? Instead of you engaging me to speak and then do a Twitter chat and then do live video and then do this, that's another tip. Number 2, titles are important. I'm like, could you call it an entrepreneur in residence? Bring this together and let's just package a whole bunch of stuff together, which I'm happy to lay out if it's helpful. So that's one, getting that deal, getting the naming, wrapping it up. I have something that's great. They have something that's great. We move together. 2, I'm bringing back my Survive and Thrive Summit last year, April 20th, I believe it was 2020. That's when kind of the COVID opening up, people, we were scared then and all that. And companies were looking for solutions to still market their products and services. So I had 1,000 and then 2,000 people signed up for my big event. So that's coming up, Survive and Thrive Summit. And beyond that, Corey, I think I'll end there to give you the space to chat about, wherever you want to take this. Is this, I think, still the growth of brands looking for people to represent them. You and I do slightly kind of different things, but from my world, my biggest bread and butter, it's growing. It's growing. Doesn't mean I don't get the deal every time, but I'm blessed to say I'm unsolicited inbound, calls and emails. So I think that part of the world is definitely growing.
Yes. So let's talk about this Oracle NetSuite deal. So it's interesting. So it sounds to me, so you were actually the one that pitched. It's not like they had a program and they said, Ramon Ray, we're going to have you choose to be our next entrepreneur in residence in our entrepreneur in residence program. Right? What you did was you said to yourself, hey, I'm doing these number of deals, arrangements, whatever, right, on one-offs or maybe a series or whatever it is with them. And you actually came up with a new deal, right, that you envisioned and that you pitched to them, right?
That's
right. And you even created the branding for it. Yes, right. You decided you were going to be the entrepreneur residence.
And I served them what they wanted, right, Corey? It's kind of like, I think the best saying is nobody, except a few of our maybe nerdy friends, go to Home Depot looking for a screw, looking for a hammer or a nail, rather, looking for a frame. Very few of us. You, your wife, our families, we just want the darn painting on the wall. That's the essence of what we want. So Corey's going through Home Depot and somebody says, Mr. Kupfer, by the way, I can do XYZ for you. And it's called the Painting Concierge Service. Done. You know what? You got the job.
Right. Love it.
That's kind of what I did.
All right. So I want to really, I think this is a great opportunity to parse because one of the things that, sure, we talk about different types of deals on this podcast. We talk about deal structures, but we also talk about the mind of a deal maker, right? Like how you think through these things. And I think this is a fascinating sort of case study, right, on how we do this, right? So I want to talk, can you delve into a little more about your mindset? Because you're thinking to yourself, hey, I'm doing A, B, and C for Oracle, right? They need X.
Yeah.
I think I can put together something that will meet their need. And that will expand our relationship, and that I'm sure will be, more monetarily lucrative to me, but also to them, and also to them. So, what was it that you said to yourself, Oracle needs that I could create this package for? What's the value to them?
I think, and I'll back up even a little further there and remind me to answer that question directly, but I just want to give homage. I wish I had a specific name, but I'm sure half of these are our mutual friends. For the past year or two, Corey, don't remember exactly, and you and I have had at least one or two in-depth conversations about my own business. I think I've been on a journey trying to mature myself, trying to 10X. That's a Grant word, but whoever it is. So I just want to set that. We can go back to that if you want, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say is just I've matured myself just to think, I have a tape measure. I don't know why I have it in my hand, but tape measure. Corey said he wants a tape measure. Ramon, stop selling the man the tape measure. Listen, ask questions. Say, by the way, Corey, I have a tape measure kit with a hammer and a paintbrush and all that. This is $2, but for $5. That's the mindset I've been in the past few months. So I'll pause there if you want before I answer. Is that helpful, Corey?
I'm glad you sort of backed it up to that, right? Because it goes directly to what I'm talking about is right, this mindset shift, right? Because even before we get into your ability to identify what, and we've been using this one example, right, of Oracle, but it applies across the board. What they need, right? You've talked about a mindset shift to say, hey, I'm actually going to in myself shift so that I can look at the bigger picture, right? And you're right. There's a, there's a phrase that I like, which is, don't give them what they want, give them what they need, and that serves them, right? Because you, as an expert in this area, you know the kind of influence you have with your people, you may be in a better position to judge the value you can provide to that client, to that partner, than they can, right?
Yeah.
So they ask for the tape measure, and you say. And listen, salespeople sometimes will call that an upsell or a cross sell or whatever. And then sometimes that gets a bad connotation. But if you're doing it from a place of integrity, which I know is the place you operate from, right? You're not just looking to upsell a client on a bigger package to make more money. You know that there's more value that you can provide them, right? And yes, you'll make more money doing that, which you deserve because you're providing them with more value.
Right. And to your point, Corey, and I will answer that. I have no problem shying away. Just people think, is Ramon trying to skirt the question? You know how politicians do. No, I'm going to answer Corey's question, the specific elements of the deal. But I think it's important as those listening, because you said this happens to be my relationship with the company, but this is extensible. I think it's a big English word, anywhere in life. And so I think to your point, Corey, yes. And I think the second thing I'll add, then we can get into the deal itself if you want, but is that it's not slimy. Because I think some people are scared of money, Corey, but you're so true, meaning you have to find the right client, right? Fair enough. But let's talk baller talk. I mean, I'm humbled and everybody's at a different stage in life, but let's talk baller talk. Uber, whatever, meaning what I'm trying to say, and Corey, you're so good and help me unpack this better. Like I say, I'm hungry and can you take me to the airport? Yeah, I want you to come back and say, Mr. Ray, for a premium, do you want us to have a 5-course meal in the car while we're driving you to the airport and iron your clothes before you get there? Yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for, and I will pay for it. So that's another element I just want to mention before I'll go to the deal. But am I right, Corey? You hear what I'm trying to say here?
No, that's perfect. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, so
the deal.
let's apply that. So Oracle has already recognized your value. You're already working with them. They're working with you in various ways. You mentioned keynotes. You mentioned Twitter chat. Right? And you say to yourself, "Hey, there is more value I can provide Oracle. There is a benefit that they haven't asked for yet, but that will make a difference for them." What was that you identified?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. I think a few things. One, the companies I know are hungry to learn. And sometimes kind of as a brand ambassador, just tactically, it's easier for me to ask something of Corey to speak at, say, Oracle NetSuite's event about deal making than them to ask. I have the relationship. So one, the big value I see what they're buying in the other company is relationships. When you hire a PR firm, an agency, we can talk all day if that works or not, but you're buying relationships. That's one thing I brought them. I think two is the aspect of the trust, Corey. Do you know how easy they can breathe? And again, no problem. I hope that you know them hearing this, nothing confidential here, but how easy they can breathe knowing we have Ramon, he's ours for the duration of this contract. and we can just work with him. He's learning more and more. We're learning more and more. We don't have to repeat it to Mo, Larry, and what are the Three Stooges, whoever they are. We don't have to keep repeating it, every day. Corey, yeah, we don't have beige lamps behind us. We hate beige for our brand. Melissa, yeah, don't wear green shirts. Our CEO doesn't like green. Working with one person, done. It's already there's as we grow, we learn. So I think that's point 2, is that I can be an extension of them. And then I think point 3, and some of these words sound weird in the context, but I'll use it. They can pass me around in a good way, pass me around within a company. They can say, imagine Corey is the one I'm working with. Corey can say, oh, yeah. I work with Ramon, done work with him for 3 months. Hey, Ramon, my buddy over here needs to work with you on something. Go. I'm already trusted, already know. Oh, yeah, that's right. He needs Form 1040. He needs Form 2AZ, whatever it is. So is that helpful, Corey? I'll pause there. Is that kind of helpful what I'm saying?
No, that's great. That's great. And so you provide, there's a number of things you mentioned, right? It's just, it's a known quantity, right? It's or quality really is the better word. It is a familiarity that you have with them. It's certainly a trust factor, right? No client, no partner, no whatever is going to expand the scope of a deal unless there's a trust factor when you've had a previous experience with them. It's obviously access to your audience, and et cetera. And listen, and what do they look? They're looking to get, listen, people know Oracle, NetSuite, right? Generally. But they believe that you can get them access and or credibility with a certain audience, right? Yes,
that is correct. And Oracle NetSuite. And I must say that, to that point, I was looking at another company before and I asked the manager there, and I think this goes back to the aspect of deal making, is that everybody can be satisfied because I think it's about value. So every company wants to 10, 20, 50 times their investment. So if Oracle NetSuite is saying, Ramon, we're going to give you this $1, and I see the $1 as genuine value for me, for them, I hope, and I want them to, quote unquote, in a good way, use and abuse me, they should be getting $50 out of that for their value.
Right.
And that, to me, is the perfect deal. If that makes sense.
Love
it. I don't know how the money adds on a deal, like if you're buying stocks and bonds and money, valuations of companies, things that you know so well. But I think in this soft issue, let's take a different example. I don't know pop culture too well, but Pepsi hiring Cardi B, I hope it was Cardi B. I hope that was the name and not the other pop star. I think it was Cardi B. Yeah. Anyways, I can get the hot water here, but let's say it was Cardi B. I can some of her fans like, Ramon, it was now the other rapper, but Cardi B, right? Cardi B's getting X millions for it. She's happy. Pepsi's like, this is worth hundreds of millions more. Yes. So just to explain, that's what we're talking about when Corey and I are talking about the art of the deal. Yeah, we should be fairly compensated. But if you're packaging it right, there's that emotional. And I think, Corey, part of it goes back to the painting. AAA, why do we all pay for, or some of us pay for AAA? We hardly ever use it. We're paying for the emotional piece that when your wife or my daughter or your husband or your boyfriend, whatever it may be, is on the road, that $200 a year, whatever we're paying a year, you can't buy that. You just can't buy that safety and security knowing, tires off, please come and fix it. Done.
Yep. Love it. Okay. So now, and again, anything you don't want to answer, you can just say it's confidential. Yeah. I'm not obviously going to ask you for specific dollars, but in terms of the deal structure, is it an annual, it's an annual thing over X number of years of a contract, whatever that they're paying you, and I would assume there's a certain scope of work of things that you're going to do for them as the entrepreneur in residence brand ambassador for Oracle NetSuite, correct?
Yeah, sure. The deal is structured kind of annually. And what it is, yes, there's a variety of buckets, and many of them are quite public that I've been doing. So, for example, working with other influencers and brand ambassadors to say, hey, listen, how can we work together? Leveraging that relationship there, I think, is one. I think point 2, another thing that's definitely very important is, hey, listen, as we go to talk to the press and media, it's great to be able to have somebody who can work with us on that storytelling journey. So that's 2. I think 3 is definitely events, Corey. That's a big thing, right? Instead of saying, Ramon, are you free in May? Are you free in June? You're free in December? You're free here? This date? You know what? Listen, you call, Ramon will answer. So that's part of the security, but also, so that's 3 is the event production side. 4 is content. As you know, Corey, I produce an inordinate amount of content.
Ton of content.
Ton of it. And so some of that content may already be or will start to be, hey, this is Ramon Ray. I'm happy to provide it once a day. I'm going to come here, blah, blah, blah. Brought to you by Oracle NetSuite. People didn't see the phone. There we go. So, so content is the fifth bucket, I think it is. And then the other thing is kind of really to help their team. They're smart people they have there. But Ramon also is on the ground, kind of as I gave that example. Imagine a Delta Force Navy SEAL, silly example, but kind of guys who are a little bit outside the wire, a little bit maverick. They have a different perspective. So I can be available to kind of give that perspective. So those are a few things that in this particular deal that we're doing and people listening can see, it's a lot. It sounds like a lot, but I'm very happy with both lots on both sides of the equation.
Love it. Let's take a break from the show for a minute so I can invite you to a new way to determine your deal readiness. I created a fast and easy assessment that will determine exactly how deal ready you are. Once you complete the assessment, I use your responses to identify the obstacles that are holding you back from being a deal-driven growth genius. It's as easy as heading to CoreyKupfer.com/assessment. That's CoreyKupfer.com/assessment and filling out a few multiple choice questions. I'll be checking in after the episode to see what your results are. Now back to the show. So on the one hand, my sense is because obviously you have still, this isn't the only thing you're doing. You're still doing plenty of other Ramon Ray stuff. Yes. So this is not exclusive in that it's not, you're not 100%, it's not an employment or a sole contract relationship. Although my guess is that there's probably some exclusivity in terms of not working with certain competitors in doing similar things.
Absolutely correct.
Probably right.
And that's a great example. And it's fair. And I think going back to what you said of the value, I think how much someone can control in a good way or how much someone could expect or earn from you, kind of like a marriage in a way, I think it's commissioned on what they're willing to give on how the deal was structured. So you're exactly right. So yes, I have a very broad latitude, run my business, do what I want. But of course, there's some brands that, are like, wow, we kind of do the same thing. So it's probably better Ramon doesn't do this Twitter chat or this speak for this. So it's pretty broad. But I think also there's that respect as well, right? It's like, imagine me and you, Corey. This is a silly working together. I hire Corey to be my lawyer. I owe him to say, hey, Corey, I want to call the other lawyer too. It's courtesy. So yes, in this deal, there's a bit of exclusivity, a bit of being careful, but yes, it's broad for Ramon to be able to do stuff, but more so who is it with for sure.
And that makes sense. And listen, folks, this is a lesson for everybody out there who's going to be listening, and there will be the normal audio version of this. There will be the YouTube version. And, we pop this up on live without any promo. So we don't expect a lot of live attendees, but whoever shows up is great. But the point is, whenever you're listening, think about applying, I bring on these great guests, Ramon's amazing, and it's easy to just listen to his story and be impressed with him and just be into his enthusiasm. What I also want our listeners and viewers to do is to think about how they can apply some of these stories, some of this experience, some of these lessons to their own situation. And, I will tell you in my business, I get a lot of my business through sort of strategic partner relationships with key folks. And one of the things that they do for me. So, for example, when, a Schwab or a Fidelity, for example, says, use Kupfer. Now, I'm not their brand ambassador or their entrepreneur residence because they don't do that. But it is an endorsement, right? For this thing where we're going to work with investment advisors who are leaving Merrill Lynch and they will start their own firm and they're going to bring their assets to a Schwab or a Fidelity, for example, and they say use Kupfer. That gives me credibility, right? Beyond my own reputation that I've built, because now I am approved by these brands, right? Ramon's getting something similar and actually a more, engaged kind of, contractual, relationship, and that helps him, right? He's, wow, a company like Oracle, NetSuite is, saying.
And let me add one more thing to that, Corey, as well. I think one thing I heard from John Warlow, those who knows about building your business to sell, something like that. And actually, in fact, if you haven't had him on here, you may want to as well. But interesting, he said that, money is relative. And here's what I mean. Let's go back to, I'll use my tape measure example again. Hope y'all don't mind me using tape measures this year. I'll tell you what it is. Me and my wife are celebrating soon our 27th wedding anniversary. And so
you're going to laugh because for some reason, I got one sitting on my desk as well. Now, my sister just moved in on a measuring.
I love it, Corey. There we go. We got some good imagery. Money is relative. So meaning the tape measure. To somebody, they may be saying, or I guess what I'm trying to say, Corey, is that to somebody who needs to eat,
Yes.
They may say, you know what, give me whatever you can. Here, take it for $1. Somebody doesn't need to eat, you're okay. You can hold out and say, listen, I'm sorry, Corey, if you want it, it's $50 for the tape measure. I'll find somebody. So I think that's another thing to also, as people are talking about, how do you value these and price these? I think part of it is what you're worth. Part of it is what is worth to somebody else. So I think that's one. Then the second thing I want to bring up, I can pause there if you want, but the second thing I want to bring up is just the aspect of going back to the competitive nature. Let's say you're doing a deal with Mercedes-Benz and BMW. You're already working with BMW a lot. You can say, listen, I will not work with Mercedes if you're willing to compensate me for a premium, because you know what a top dog I am. I mean, not Ramon, but in any business you're in, a top dog I am. I'll be exclusive to you, and that makes you more valuable. So that's another thing to think about. And not everybody can do it, but if you're able to, say, you know what, I'll forego this revenue. I won't work with the Gap. I'll work with guests or whatever. That's another thing you can do.
100%. And I'm glad you went there, because it's exactly where I was going. And I'll, since you took that side of it, I'm gonna take the flip side of that, right? I've had folks. I mean, you notice I happen to mention Schwab and Fidelity. They're competitors in the along with TD Ameritrade and Pershing. TD Schwab just acquired, but in any case, the point is that they're competitors in the custodial space, right? I actually work with both of them. Mm-hmm. There are other sort of platforms out there I'm just picking the investment advisor space because that was a space I do a lot in, but there are various platforms out there. I work for a lot of them. They're competitors with each other. The reason they all work with me is obviously because we have a very strong niche in this area. We've done hundreds of these breakaway broker transactions. There are very few firms that do it. They trust us, etc. And they know that we are not. So what are the key things to that? On the one side, none of them, all right, sometimes you get, and I'm not saying Schwab and Fidelity did this, but you get situations where somebody says to you, I don't want you working for one of my competitors. And I'll say to them, okay, we can have a discussion about an exclusive deal, but what you pay me is X. That's going to cost Y, right? There's a whole different economic deal for any kind of exclusivity, whether it's limited or, and certainly if it's broader, right? Now, in my industry, and this ethical things as a lawyer, but I don't want to get into that. I just want to use it as an example. In my industry, in general, in this particular space, right? Nobody's going to pay for the exclusive. So part of the understanding is that, hey, no, you're not going to get an exclusive. I am going to work with your competitor, right? Now, I'll tell you what I'm not going to do. What I'm not going to do is when you refer me into a deal, I'm not going to go to the client and say, hey, have you also looked at these other guys?
Oh, right.
Right. I mean, that's the understanding I have, is that I'm not going to drive people to my other clients, right? And sell them away from you or try to convince them, to go somewhere else. That's honoring the relationship. Now, listen, as a lawyer, I have ethical requirements. So if Ramon's my client and Ramon says to me, hey, Corey, I know you got introduced, to me by Fidelity, but I also want to know about Schwab. I'm considering Schwab. I have to talk to him, but I'm not going to out of the blue go say, go look at Schwab as well, right? So the reason why I give that detail is not that it's important about my arrangements, but it is important about being very conscious about structuring your deal, what level of restriction or exclusivity or, you're going to give, and how that relates to deal structure and pricing.
That's right. You're 100% true, because you can get the flip side of that. I'm working for Joe Schmo. This is Joe Schmo and Betty Schmo. Joe Schmo says work exclusive, but then it's not paying me enough. I can't eat, as it were. I feel angry every single day, Corey, because Betty Schmo keeps calling me from getting my names right here, and I'm losing money. But the way you feel great is that Joe compensating you very well. You're not losing. Joe appreciates you because he knows, I got a baller working just for me, and we're both happy. So to Corey's point, you're right, because you can be jammed if you're not thinking clearly and you're just like, you know what? Sure, let's do it. Then you regret it. A week or two later, you get a call and you have to say no. You're like, man. So, right. But if, and that goes back to speaking. I think anything, I think in our industry, right, the speaking, we talk about those painful clients, and thankfully you and I don't have clients like that. But a client that's really difficult. To Corey's point, he's hinting it. I can work with anybody. You may pay for it, but you want me to stand outside in the freezing cold and give a 4-hour talk in the snow? Done. No problem. That's going to cost you a certain amount of money.
Right. And listen, here's on this exclusivity piece, just as a last point on why, you should be getting value for it, is that when you do a good job in a particular area, industry, company, certainly it happens as speakers, right? You give a great talk at a conference for X, right? If you do great work, opportunities in that industry, in that area are going to come up for you. So you are, by definition, with any kind of exclusivity or restriction, giving up that opportunity that's going forward, and there's value to that. That's the bottom line, right?
That's right. And I like the point. This again, I love this conversation. We're going a variety of places, which I hope is okay. But talking about going niche, I have no doubt that Corey is one of the most in demand. And I know a little bit what Corey does, but it's like way above my head, some of it. But in his particular industry with money and finance and law and all these things, everybody knows Corey. And in my small niche, because it's small compared to the global scale, small niche of the world, large tech brands selling to small businesses, everybody knows my name. This doesn't mean I have every deal, but every out of the top 300 companies, Wix, Square, Zoho, Salesforce, SAP, Oracle, NetSuite, Microsoft, mention any tech, PayPal, any tech company, everybody knows Ramon and Smart Hustle. I promise you that. It's a beautiful place to be.
Right, which means so that's the place I wanted to go as well, and whether it's and we can tie it into the Oracle arrangement or anything else you do, really. What is it that you do? So to get your whatever the first thing you did for Oracle, right? Or any of your other big brands that you work with, there had to be something you did that had them see value, right? So you don't get a deal, whether it's just somebody paying a $5,000 sponsorship for your Smart Hustle conference, or it's somebody, paying you to speak at their event, or having you sponsoring a Twitter chat with paying, you X dollars, whatever it is. They don't do that for everybody, right? Tech brands don't do that for me. They wouldn't do that for me. I have no value I can bring them.
Not yet.
Right? So what is now, obviously I have value. I bring other,
Of course.
So what is it? So let's go back to the basics so people understand. You didn't just walk into Oracle or Microsoft or whatever and say, hey, cut me a check. And they said, oh, Ramon's a nice, funny, good looking guy. We're going to cut him a check. No. What did you do in advance to create value that had them say, maybe we will cut this guy a check?
That's a great question. After I answer this, Corey, I'd love for you to feel free to dig in more to help me even say it better, because I love these are very introspective questions. Sometimes we don't see ourselves, but others do. But I think a few things come to mind. I think one is definitely being so long in the industry as you and I both are. You're well known and a trusted name. So I think that's one. And again, my peers, competitors, but they're all my friends. I know them all. We talk all the time. We a small cabal of us have been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years. So that's one, the longevity. I think point two is also being, since I know many of the players, ancillary, I think is another big word in our industry. Corey, or whatever the tech brand is, working with Ramon means Corey now knows my whole network. Like a good lawyer, right? Yeah, like in your world, right? You can just say, hey, Ramon, we need this. Do you know a guy? Oh, yeah, I used to work with this guy. I just hired this guy. We were on a chat together, me and this guy, Shark Tank, whatever it is, which is reality. So that's point two. And I think the third thing in regards to Ramon, Corey, and I feel myself tearing up. I cry very easily, Corey, but I was doing something recently for a client, and the video didn't work on their end. Instantaneously, Corey, I came to life, which is my gift. And I'm only realizing this now. I used to not see it as a gift. I covered them. I put all the blame on me. We had fun. I bet people barely noticed the video didn't work. And the client was scrambling. They were like, oh my, it's not working. But I'm joking, having fun, and gave them time to just privately tell me, Ramon, move on. So I think for Ramon, Corey, I'm seeing better, and you and I talk about this in our other, networks and communities we're in. I may not be the deepest introspective guy. I could be, but I'm just having some fun here. That may not be my gift. I may not be the person who speaks with a British accent about productivity, and I've researched a million companies. That's not my gift. But if there's a big brand that wants to have fun, engagement, energy, and if stuff is broke, knows Ramon can off the fly spark for 3 hours with no notes, that's my gift, and I'm your guy. So that third reason is why the big companies, when their CEOs who are busy, they didn't have time to read the script, they know they're safe in Ramon's hands because Ramon will cover. If Corey makes a mistake, Ramon will put it all on him, giving Corey time to get back into shape.
Okay, great. I love that. And I think that's real insightful in terms of, what makes you unique, today and has for a while, et cetera. You've been in the game. Let's go back to when you started, right? Sure. We joked about you calling yourselves a mini influencer. Well, there was a time where you were a really mini influencer, where you influenced maybe your wife and maybe your kid, maybe not, right? And so how did you go from somebody, because we're all, somebody who have, a few people know us, to how did you even start to build any kind of influence that any of these brands would have been interested in?
Yeah. The one thing I did, Corey, and I'm sure there's a lot of things. We talk longer, I can give you the whole playbook, but there's a lot. But I recall one tactical thing I did. I had an email newsletter called the Small Business Technology Report. Made it up, Corey. And I can't remember why. I'm sure I can remember if we talk longer why I made it up. But it's the playbook we all do now. Playbook we hear from our mutual friend Jeffrey Hazlett and others in podcasting.
Yep.
I started to interview the big brands. I can't remember why I did it, but I'm sure there was some genius connection. Because remember, back then, there wasn't all the knowledge we have today. And that was 20 years ago.
That's right.
But I interviewed Nigel Burton, who was like a VP at Microsoft. So people are slowly connecting the dots. I interviewed him about marketing to small businesses. And that, I believe, was my entry 20-something years ago, Corey, to being known now 20 years later in this space. The person who interviews everybody who he wants to be around is going to be known. This is the fact. And anybody can do that right now. You're trying to break into the lumber industry, which I know nothing about. You start interviewing all the major lumber companies in Seattle, wherever they are in the world, 2 years, whatever it is, you will be the most known person in the lumber industry. End of story. Just interviewing.
And Ramon, let me. I did not know you when you did that, so I don't know the answer to this. But I'm going to guess I know the answer to this. When you did those interviews, right? Did you go in and ask them for anything other than to allow you to interview them?
Wonderful
Did you pitch them on a product, a service to hire you?
Not at all. And I know you know the answer. That's exactly right.
I didn't know the answer, but I knew the answer.
Absolutely. It was a pure editorial interview. And you're right, Corey, as you're hinting, that's a mistake people often make. Corey's the head of the jelly bean factory of the world. Hey, Corey, can I interview for my jelly bean report? By the way, Corey, can I get 20% off? You just devaluated, invalidated, revaluated. Corey, give me some big word, whatever something it is, you went negative. It just doesn't work that way. You have to show people. Another story, Joe Connolly, whole different, but WCBS Radio 88 and the WCBS local reporter, how I met him. We're out of touch in recent days, but in fact, he just retweeted me today. But the point is that similar thing. I was like, Joe, can I help with your bags? He was interviewing the head of Priceline years ago. I was on the radio a few days later. So the point, Corey, what you're bringing out, value. Yeah, we're all in business, but just show value. Just be a nice person. That will take you a lot farther in the end.
Love it. So Ramon, talk to us a little bit about, you mentioned the conference coming up. Let's make sure listen, folks, anything that Ramon does is valuable, a heck of a lot of fun. And, he draws great people. So I definitely want you to know about it. So tell us, Ramon.
Yeah, and I will. I don't know how much time there is, but I'll tell you the genesis of it as well a little bit. So What I'm doing on May 18th is called the Survive and Thrive Summit. People can just go to smarthustle.com, look at our event section to see that free event. But because I always want to learn lessons, where people are listening to lessons. So the lesson from this is that everybody does events. Corey does a podcast. I do a podcast. We're all a dime a dozen. We're all doing trying our little thing here in the world. I'm thinking, how can I be different? How do I make an event different? can't hire Rob Fair, our mutual friend for NSA, and he's gifted with all the fancy stuff. But I know what I can do. A 5-hour, no-taped, live experience. And that's what I've done, Corey. It's kind of a well-known thing. People are talking about it. 5 hours, Ramon's going to be there, not moving. It sounds fun, sounds a little crazy, a little risky, but that's the idea. Okay, we're all doing something, but how can I do one little twist? How can I do a little pink ribbon? Or how can I make it off-center? Whatever, to make what I'm doing a bit different and get attention. And it's a 5-hour live experience. Smart Hustle.
Love it. And this is on May 18th.
May 18th, that's right.
Okay, so folks, unfortunately, so those of you who see this live, and we are going to put out, some snippets and things about that. The audio version of this is going to air on May 19th.
Nope. It's funny, but you know what? People can go back and see the 5-hour experience. If they just look at smarthustle.com, look through Ramon's channel, just not selling anything, but just so they can see what I'm doing. So feel free to go back, and it'll be archived on YouTube and everywhere. So
perfect. Great stuff. And then you've done the Smart Hustle Conference every year, and you do, there's so many of us. So listen, folks, definitely check out. Where can people find you? What is it? Give them the website again.
Thanks, Corey. 2 places, easy place, smarthustle.com or ramonray.com. You'll find me there all the time.
There you go. Easy enough. Ramon, any last thoughts that you want to leave the audience with on anything?
Yeah, indeed. Just go out and do it. For those who are newer, sometimes the perfection it keeps us behind. It's not ready. It's not done. It's not ready. Just do it. And as another financial person I talked to says, he has a radio show, don't make fatal errors, but just go out and do it. And I think and have fun and just keep listening to Corey and his team and watch his journey. Because it's been great, Corey, to see you transform from a boring deal maker, just teasing Corey, to being a thought leader, being author and podcaster and interviewer. So watching your journey, Corey, means, and this is not in a bad way, anybody can do it, meaning the tools are there. 100%. The tools are there. You just have to do it.
Listen to him. If Corey can do it, anybody can do it. Love it. All right, Ramon. So the last question I asked on the version of the podcast now is different than the last question I asked back on episode 3. So I'm going to close out with this question. Freedom is my highest ideal in life. It's my highest value. To me, that means everything from freedom for all people from oppression of all types to why I'm an entrepreneur and I don't have a boss and I run my own company, right? What does freedom mean to you and how does it apply to your life and business?
Yeah, Corey, for sure. The days when I wake up and it gets so hard and I feel like working for somebody, feel like that business is tough. What you just said, Corey, is the freedom. The freedom that I can wake up and say, honey, let's go on a date at 2 p.m. The fact that I have the freedom also, Corey, to fail, to have massive amounts of debt. But as of recently, be debt free. So the fact that I have the freedom, so I can go on, Corey. I know that's last, but it just means so much to me, Corey. But that's the freedom I love. The freedom to make profit and money. And I know you and we help as much as we can others, but I'll stop there. But that's the freedom I enjoy. Echoing your sentiments, Corey. Love it.
Ramon Ray, thank you for being an amazing return guest on the DealQuest podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of DealQuest, where we help you understand how deal-driven growth can be your ticket to freedom. I want to invite you to a unique way to tap into the wisdom and experience of the DealQuest community. Join the DealQuest Deal Den Zoom calls, a free monthly 90-minute mastermind. In the mastermind, we address all the challenges you may be facing and help support you with the opportunities that may arise in terms of deal-driven growth. You will get input not only from me, but all the members on the call will collaborate and serve each other in a mastermind format. To sign up for the free mastermind, go to www.coreykupfer.com/dealden. That's coreykupfer.com/dealden. I'll see you there. I'm Corey Kupfer. Until next week, wishing you the freedom and financial prosperity that I know your DealQuest will bring.